and welcome to your virtual Grow Group teacher training for Inman Park United Methodist Church. First of all, I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I want to thank you for your dedication to our children by volunteering to teach this year. We couldn't do this program without you, and our kids will benefit for years to come. So thank you so much. I want to take you today through our Train in Love philosophy. Last year was our first year teaching Grow Groups, and we had several volunteers involved in the process. And one of the things that came back in that first year was some teachers struggled with knowing how to have a consistent classroom management style in our program. And so at the end of last year, our children's ministry team started to come up with a program we call Train in Love. Now, the philosophy behind Train in Love is basically just a foundation that everybody that's involved in our Grow Group program, the first mission that we have is to share love, the love of God, the love of Jesus with our children. First and foremost, before anything else we teach, we want to make sure that love is present. And we believe too that whenever you are training in love, it goes beyond the classroom. So when you sign up to be a Grow teacher, you're signing up to love our kids. And knowing all of you like I do, I know that you're fantastic at that. Just a few tips about the idea of being grounded in love. When you're in the classroom, of course, show love, but one of the things that's going to get you a lot of mileage is whenever you show our kids love outside of the classroom. So when you see them in the sanctuary, give them a high five, give them a hug, ask them how they're doing, build relationships with their parents, get to know their families. We just want to show our kids that we care about them beyond just in our classroom. And then whenever they've built that relationship with you outside of the classroom, whenever you have your time in the classroom with them, there will be a level of respect and trust and love between you and the children that will get you a lot of mileage in terms of them listening to you and following the directions and so forth. So everything that we do is grounded in love. We are sharing God's love, we're sharing love with each other. So just keep that in mind as we go forward this year in our Grow Groups. Now, with that undergirded foundation of love, we have developed 4, we'll call them rules in this video, but we might actually use the language promises that we want to start cultivating between the kids and the teachers inside the classroom. And just in everything that we do together at Inman Park. We'll be using these same promises with connect groups on Friday nights with the kids. Anytime that I'm working with kids in the program, we're going to be reinforcing these promises. And so the next piece of our Train in Love and something that we can all share consistently across the classroom are these 4 promises. So I've created signs to post in each classroom. So we've got here the friends and the followers and the finders. And each of these lists the same 4 promises. The first one is to obey God. Number 1, first and foremost, we want to remind everybody that God is present with us in everything we do. It's not just when we study the Bible, it's whenever we're playing together on the playground, it's whenever we're eating together, it's when we're laughing and having fun. God is present always. And so just this number 1 promise to obey God and just remember that God is present with us will help us to kind of keep our bearings and help set an expectation that God is here. So we should obey God. The second promise that we're going to make with each other is to do no harm. And it's fun to watch the kids talk about examples of what that means. But the first thing we want to do is make sure that none of our actions, whether it's physical or verbal, do harm to somebody else. So we want to refrain from hitting, and we want to refrain from saying something mean, and we want to refrain from being a distraction in the classroom. So number 2 is do no harm. Number 3, our promise is going to be to do good. So we go beyond just not doing harm into doing good. So that's where we ask the kids to consider, what can I do that's going to contribute to the good of the group? What are some nice things I can say? How can I make sure that I listen and follow directions well? How can I contribute to the classroom with good answers and good input? So number 3 is to do good. And number 4 was just that reminder we're going to promise to respect the teachers and our classmates. We always want to show respect for each other, and this too reminds us not to speak out of turn. It reminds us to follow directions. It reminds us to consider somebody else's feelings. If you notice, a lot of these promises kind of say a lot of similar things, but they're good ways to reinforce the kind of environment that we want to have in the classroom. So in the first weeks of Grow Groups, I'm going to give each of these signs to the classrooms, and I'm going to ask the teachers to sit with the kids, spend some extra time. I know that you might have to cut into your lesson, but I think your year will go a lot smoother if you spend the first couple of weeks with the kids going over these signs with the promises on them. Ask the kids, what does it look like to obey God? And have them fill out examples of things that they can do that shows that they're obeying God. What does it look like to do no harm? What does it look like to do good? What does it look like to respect the teachers? And when the kids have input in filling out these promises, it's going to make them own it a little bit more. In the first couple of weeks, we'll ask you to sign these signs or contracts, basically, and hang them on the wall in your classroom. So the kids will sign them, the teachers will sign them, all the teachers. Some of you are only coming in once a month, and so it's good. Each time we have a new teacher, we can review the promises posted on the wall, and each teacher and each kid that's involved can always sign and make sure that they're a part of these promises together. So when you have these promises as your basis that are grounded in love, this will help you in terms of managing your classroom. Anytime that a kid forgets themselves and perhaps breaks one of the promises or is stretching one of the promises, it's always good to start with reminding them about the promises. You've got the sign posted in the room so you can remind them and go back to it and say, oh, remember we promised we're going to do no harm. And that's just a gentle way to remind them. If it gets further than that, though, we have created a consistent discipline plan in our Train and Love system. And so it has tiers. As I mentioned, the first step is to, if something is happening, remind them of the promises. And it's a gentle reminder of, oh, remember we have promised that we're going to obey God. Oh, remember we have promised that we're going to do no harm. So start there, redirecting. If a child continues to break the promises or continues to be unruly or out of line, we have the next step listed as to take time out from the activity. This can be something, again, that's gentle. Remember, we're grounded in love, so we want to respect the child in the process, but if there is a problem in the classroom and there's a continued disruption, you do have that power to go to the next step and say, okay, it's time for you to take a time out. This might look different based on which environment you're in, whether it's in the classroom or whether you're outside playing games, but step 2 is definitely a timeout. Step 3 comes whenever if a timeout hasn't worked and there's still issues today in the classroom, maybe something's going on at home, maybe the kid's just not in a great mood, the next step is for you to call the director of children's ministries in. Right now that's me. So this year I've planned the Grow Groups so that I'm not tied to any one classroom. I'm actually going to be a floater, just there to help whenever there are issues. And so if there is a discipline issue where you need some reinforcement so that you can continue with the rest of the kids, you would call me in. And that's where I would kind of step in and talk to the child, maybe see if there's something going on a little bit deeper, maybe see if we can figure out what the root of the issue is, maybe see if we can walk through the promises again. But I would take over so that you can continue teaching. And then if we bring the child back in, and we hope we never get this far, step 4, if we bring the child back in and there's still disruptions, you can talk to me again, and I will be in charge of contacting parents if we need to contact parents and have a discussion about what's going on. So again, whenever it comes time to think about classroom management and discipline, we have 4 steps that you can take. Number 1, reminder, redirect back to the promises and say, remember, these are our promises. Remember, this is what we need to do in the classroom. Number 2 is a timeout from the activity. Number 3 is calling in the director of children. And number 4 is calling parents, and that's something that I would help with and make sure that that gets done. So this is our Train and Love system, and it's designed, again, to give you some consistency and just some tools to use in your classroom environment. I think that each of you are going to bring something very special to the children this year, and I'm so grateful that the children have you to look up to and to learn with together this year. If you have any questions or concerns about this, or you want to talk further about anything, please shoot me an email or give me a call. One way that we can start the conversation is if you've made it all the way through this video and talked with me, shoot me an email and tell me your favorite kind of cereal. And then maybe any questions or concerns that you have about this program. I hope that you have a great day, and again, I thank you so much for volunteering to be a part of our Grow groups.